Kumlena Blat Gemara. We are up to today the Ayin Ches Amad Aleph. Last thing we're learning about was this little creek that was emanating from the base of Migdash and how it widened and also how it became deeper. Now the Gemara says that we finally came to the house of David and the water became much stronger. Then we said it became like a running rapids. And so start again, the Gemara had 3 lines on the top, or 2 lines on the top. From here on in, the water got stronger until it came to the house of David. But once it arrived at Pesach Beis David, and Rashi says that Zion is actually outside Yerushalayim, where David lived. It became like a flowing river. That's where they used to bathe. Zovin, v'zovos, nidas, v'yodas. That's where these people used to go ahead and go to the mikvah. And it says, by Yemahu, on that day, it would open up for what? Lechatas v'lenida. So they used to use it as a mikvah. From here you learn out that a nida that a nida has to actually sit in the water. In other words, you can't go into a mikveh where the water is shallow and just lie down there. We needed to go into a mikveh which is quite high. The example Gemara gives us 3 amas high, 1 amma wide. We needed to be in such water that the water at least should rise until her neck, should reach her neck. What she has to do then is tip her head down. And because you can't say that you have to stand, because we learned before that standing in these running waters are dangerous. So you're sitting, and therefore it has to be up to the neck. But less hilchas sekavase, like him, it doesn't really matter whether the water is deep or not deep, as long as it covers every single hair in her body. She is Yetzer Mikveh. Taisus here is a very interesting Taisus. Taisus asks a question that we take for granted. Taisus asks, where does a Torah say that a nid has to go to mikveh at all? We know a zova has to go to mikveh. How do you know that a nida has to go to mikveh? It doesn't say anywhere in the Torah. So Taisus gives a couple of answers, and he says that when he went to Mechemes Midyan and he told him to tovel the kelim, it said that he was chata b'mei nida. That means the water that a nida can go to the mikveh, and that's what you should use to his kelim. So that's how we know that a nida goes to the mikveh. And then Mefoshim have a hard time with that because there are many of the training that hold that tefillas kelim is only with the Rabbanan. So that pasuk is not even talking about tefillas kelim. It has nothing to do with that at all. So how do you know that a nida he has to go to the mikveh? So he brings another pasuk, v'hidba b'nidosa, and we say that it, according to one opinion, that she remains a nida until she goes into the mikveh. But there's another opinion there in the Gemara. So this is actually quite an interesting thing. That's something we take so much for granted. And Taisus here, this is the beauty of Taisus and Krista says that you should know when you learn Shas. And you see clearly here, Taisus in Yoma Daf discusses where do you know that a nida has to go to mikveh. In fact, you would think that this Taisus should be found, it will be in nida. Where else would you be talking about?
There's no something made the Lord or something that was in Pashas Chukas. So it was. This is actually a tile of Torah Aduma, I think, and it says "May nida loy zera."
Yeah, it's talking about the Efer Chatas.
Exactly.
So nida means tamei.
Oh, exactly.
Not a woman.
Exactly. So how do you know when you? So how do you know the context? Which is which?
Because in general,
it's not.
The context. But they were talking about chutas Torah Aduma, so therefore we're talking about Efer, and we're saying nida, so it means. Okay. But there, stam, we're giving an allegory. No, but Tfilas Kalim. But you're comparing it to a nida. What do we know a nida is? Main nida is generally.
Yes, why don't you compare it to the nida?
Because over there is a one-off thing. It's really if the Torah meant to chata would say me chatas, so may something to that effect. Using the term nida, if outside of paradum, we would say it means that me nida. I just find it very interesting that this is like discussed here. And we don't even have a cloud kite because the Mephoshim have a hard time. Each one of them is only an opinion. That's a very kabbalah. I'm happy with that either. Anyway, let's continue. Second one, right? Shabbos, the Ikamandel, my. What about? So we're talking about over here about Yom Kippur, wearing shoes. Now wearing shoes, we want to know on Shabbos when you wear shoes, can you? So on Yom Kippur you can cross the water. You're not wearing shoes, but on Shabbos you wear shoes. Can you cross water on Shabbos? Can you walk with shoes through the water on Shabbos? because we're scared you might take them off and carry them on Shabbos. Amar Mechemia Chashav Vedasiya, and Mechemia, the son of the Vedasiya, said, "I know Chazisa Rabami Rabasi. I once noticed Rabami Rabasi, the Moti Urkuma the Maya. They came across a river of water of Avrua Derech Malbush. They were and they crossed the things. We see clearly a lot of wear shoes. No, there was no chash that they're going to take it off and carry it. Oh, that's okay. It's good, a proper shoe. Sandal, Michael name, and a mandal is tight, so therefore, even though you're in water, it won't fall off. But a sandal that's loose, but it's thick leather. It's not something soft leather. It's thick leather, so therefore, it cannot make it tight around your foot. Michael it might slip off. Aren't we worried that you're going to carry it on Shabbos or not? So the Gemara, I once saw Ravina, the Ovad Derech Mamash. Yes, he walked with a sandal across. Ravashi says, sandal the Chatchila loy. Ravashi says, no, a sandal. I think you shouldn't cross with a sandal Chatchila. Why? Because of that very reason, it might fall off and you're going to carry it on Shabbos. Reish Gelusa Ikel Hagroina. The Reish Gelusa once came to visit the city of Hagroina Levei Rab Nosson, to the house of Nosson. Rafram was there. Bekul Rabban Osru Lepirke. They all came to hear this shir from the Reish Gelusa. It was matter of from the Reish Gelusa. I think of a shir. Ravina didn't show up. Lamocha the following day. Boy, Rafram didn't show up. So the Reish Gelusa, imagine, was very upset because he didn't show. He didn't come up to the shir or on the front. And so Boy Rafram Lafukil Ravina Bedai to the Reish Gelusa. So Rafram was a mensch, and he wanted the Reish Gelusa to know that it was nothing personal. There must have been a good reason. So he teased it out of Ravina why he didn't show up. He said to him, "My time why did you come yesterday? My knees were hurting me, boy." So he said, but Rafa said, "No kind of excuse to that. You boy should put shoes on. Gabba the kara you have." He said, "Oh, it was the bottom of my feet over there that was hurting." He boy look me sandal. Okay, so it was hurting. You don't wear tight shoes, wear sandals. I'm like, there was a river of water there. So like therefore on Shabbos I didn't want to come. So he said to me, "You could have crossed it with wearing your sandals and crossing the river." Ravashi, but don't you, we just said Ravashi said sandal chatchila loy, a sandal chatchila you shouldn't wear. Unfortunately, I have a hard time understanding. This is Ravina, and Ravina was the one who said before that Chuma said I saw Ravina cross wearing sandals. So because of that, they want to say that two Ravinas, which is a big chiddush. Easier to say that after he heard that Ravashi came out against it, he also decided not to do it anymore. So anyway, right? Also, Leisha Gabetin, the Rabbi Yehuda Bar Greig, interesting name, said that on Yom Kippur you shouldn't sit agabetin on top of mud. Why not? Because you get wet. We don't want you to get you're not bathing. We said before even mixes good for you, so we don't want you to get wet. I'm going to relate you betin, but we're talking about if it's wet mud. I'm going to buy a bit of tefem. That's not wet, but it has to be very wet that it can even. Especially we always use tefem. That's not fair. That you're so wet that you can make others wet as well. I'm going to view the mutal is down a bit. Pay that you allow these fruits and put them on you. Let's say it's hot. You're allowed to take fruits, cold fruits, and just put them on your skin to cool yourself down. That's not called bathing at all. He used to Bikra, or what's the vegetable again? With gourd, is it gourd? Okay, Rabba Mistanan be Yanuka. Rabba, interesting, used to use a baby her body is cool. A baby's body is cooler than an adult. So we take a baby's body, a squash, okay. We take a baby's body and put it against their body. Rabba Mistanan, because of the kaspa, Rabba used to use a silver becher because it was cold. And place it on his body. I guess it was hot in Yom Kippur. Amar Papa, kosa the kaspa moli. Also, if it's full of content of liquid, it's also because you might spill over some, and therefore you are going to be hanen from rechitza. Chasa shari, but if it's missing, you're allowed to. The pachra, if it's made out of earthenware, either you also warm. It leaks all the time. Forget about full or not full; it's going to leak right through. Even a silver becher and it's missing, if there's any liquid inside awesome, it's quite possible that it might slip out of your hand and get you all wet. He was the host of Rabbi Rabasi, he was the host of all these great Tamid Chachamim with the cooler Rabban the case all the Rabbanon came from those places. So he said to Rabbi Yosef, who was the son of Rabbi Shimon Levi, he said to him, Bada Adia, this you son of a lion. No, he's referring to his father. Your father Shimon Levi was a lion. I'll tell you something about the behavior of your father because I used to host them. I know exactly how they behave. He had a shmat, he had like a handkerchief. What did he did? What was showed he used to soak it in water. And then he used to take this and What do you call it? There's two different shatim. Either he used to wring it out, or he just spread it out so that it should dry up to a certain extent. And the following day, he would use it. Now there's a little bit of moisture left in there, and he would go use it to wipe his face. At a tishbav, he would soak in the water. So that's what he did every kippur. And at a tishbav, which is easier, he would soak it in water. At Tishbav, wouldn't even wring it out. At Tishbav, he would just let us, take it, and he would put it on his eye afterwards. He soaked in the water, he put it under his head like a pillow, he didn't even drink it out. The following day, he would go ahead and wipe his hands and feet. Or better, he would dry it first. And then he would put it over his eye. You told us the other way around. You told us that once you told us Tisha B'Av, he would make it dry, and at Yom Kippur he didn't dry it; just put it under his head, and he would use it the next day. And we asked you questions. We asked, it doesn't make sense. How can you bring it out on Yom Kippur? It's a case of schita. Yeah. Or other Rashi, another pshat is an every Yom Kippur that even if you wring it out a little bit, can mean kalim meguvim. There's still enough water left that you can argue it's considered a chitza and Yom Kippur. That shouldn't be good enough. Okay, so bottom line is, there's a big machlekes in the Shainim if you're allowed to wash your hands. We mentioned yesterday, many of the Shainim hold you allowed to wash your hands negative in the morning. Because it's not a tainug, full negavas. Because it's not tainug. Remember the key was before tainug, and it's doing the mitzvah. He can across the kach yisrael, and so on and so forth. You're allowed to use this gemara a little bit as well to prove one way or another. And then there's a machlek. If you make a bracha to sedayim, you don't make a bracha to sedayim. A few questions. Question number one should not relate to our gemara. An old man who was sitting by the Sanhedrin. We know that there's different kinds of there's yodin, and there's yoda, and then there's yata. Yata is that this person is an expert that he can go ahead and be mater b'chayros. And we said over there that I spent 18 months by a farm to learn all the movement, and then they weren't very happy giving him because he knew so much. People would be a bit perplexed by some of the laws that he would give out. Issue. If the whole reason to get permission you need these smichas is more to give covet to the nasi. What about somebody who himself is a big Batam Chacham Zokin, the Yeshiva Yeshiva, an older man? Yeshiva, everybody knows he's a Chashva guy. So does he need Rishut? Michael, by the first time I understand what the question was. The whole reason why they give Rishut is not really to test your knowledge enough, but more that you get Rishut from the Nasi that you should be able to pass at once in your lifetime. So what about if you're a Zoke? Since he's already seen this and never knows who he is, he's a Chashva guy, he doesn't need it, just not. What to do with nothing, we'll see what the lead in is. Rav Tzaddik ben Chaluk stood up on his feet, and he said, he was greater than this guy's grandfather. Another person was giving the shoes, but not to the shoes. Yet he still gave him the cover to do the respect, and he took the shoes to Matul Chaydes. Actually, that's what happened. The problem there, you know why he got the shoes? Not because he needed a shoes for yati yati. Could very well be that if Zazakim v'Yeshiv Shiva doesn't need to get the shoes, but there he was a kohen. And there's a machlekes if you can trust a kohen to be matzah b'chaydos, because a kohen for himself for sure he cannot be trusted because he has vested interest. Obviously, he'll benefit. But like the Vad Abarotzes came out and made a psak that the butcher and the sheikh cannot be the same person because they have a vested interest in saying it's all kosher. However, if a machlekes, if a kohen can testify on behalf of another kohen, are we worried about communion? Are we worried about the deal? I'll say your animals are toiled and you'll say my animals, are without movement or not. So this Rabbi Zir was a kohen. Halachic Rameya is the halacha made on Choshev B'Dava Leit Donav Lo Mayidah. We're not allowed to use them at all to testify. Adim Allah Shem Yilul Dama Nemenu Al Shachavei Divin Al Shal Atzmai. He's believed for other kind, not for himself. And that was a shayla. He wasn't there to get a shus.
It's interesting you asked Rabbi Eliezer if there was a Talmud of Rabbi Yochanan.
The Shabbat Loz Bapdos.
Yeah, there was a Talmud of Rabbi Yochanan about when he was sitting in Sanhedrin. You'll by that time that he never seen it.
And the Bapdos was the Talmud of Rabbi Yochanan?
Yeah.
It was a Bapdos.
Yes, that's a Rabbi.
No, that was a Baruch. The Shabbat Bapdos.
No, Rosamund Roth is a Tanner. Rabbi Bapdos is an Amir. He's the one who's okay, put Machlokes with the Shlokish and Rabbi Yochanan. That's the Rabbi Lozer with the Amir.
Okay. Posher halachic Rashbak. He said to him the halachic like the Rashbak. Halachic Hashem Gamlu. Okay, that was the leading question. The main question was, are you allowed to wear a sandal, but different material? It's a material like made from reeds, so it's not made from leather. The Yom Haki put on Yom Kippur. I'm going to be big machlekes. Big machlekes is shayim hadlam shatim mori. 5 different shittas, but we'll just learn very naturally. Amar Rabbi Nachmani al-Raglav, his name stood up on his feet. Amar Ani Disi Rabbi Shua ben Levi. I myself saw Rabbi Shua ben Levi. She yotza the sandal shasham b'Yom Kippurim. They walked around with a sandal made out of reeds on Yom Kippur. In other words, only l'chayda leather is us, and everything else is permitted. I mean, and I said, what about tying tzibur for rain? Also, when you also have these old exedas in Nuyim, Amar Leishna, no difference. Tying from rain or Yom Kippur. Amar Rabbi Ani Disi Rabbi Lazar from Ninveh. I said Rabbi Lazar from Ninveh. So who's Rabbi Lazar from Ninveh? Sheyotza b'sandal shel sham b'tiny tzibur aytaka. So walking once on Tanis from the tiny tzibur, and I saw him walking with these shoes. These things made out of reeds. What about your kippur? Are these shoes all right? No, it makes no difference. Rabbi Yehuda, he would walk around on Yom Kippur. Nothing, he walked around, but he ate another kind of reeds. Abai nothing, but the Hutza, he walked around with leaves from palm trees. Arava nothing, but he walked around with some kind of shoes made out of grass. Rabba Barabhuna Korech Sudra Kare, he would put a handkerchief around his feet, even nothing, and he'd walk around that way. In other words, the bottom line from all of this is, if it's not made out of leather, even though it serves as a shoe, it's not a problem. Mosi Rami Bachom. Rami has a question. We had in Shabbos regarding somebody who's an amputee. We had a question about to walk around with a stump. Meir holds is allowed to walk around with a stump of Shabbos because it's considered, like a shoe and so on. And Rabbi Yesi asks, and Pashas were saying right now, Rabbi Yesi asks because it's not considered a shoe. Why is it not considered a shoe? Because most people don't wear it, and anything which is ein shaveh b'koil is not considered a shoe. But the Tani Allah, we learned that Noah's made holds that it is a shoe, and we learned Vishavin also lots by Yom Kippurim, and Rabbi Yesi holds it's not a shoe, and Rabbi Yesi says even though it's not a shoe, but on Yom Kippur you're not allowed to wear it. So what are you telling me that? No. So you're saying that a shoe is considered like one of these shams. It's considered like an alternative.
It's what everyone else has. It's the replacement of the
What do you mean? We don't look at that. We look at it because it's not part of your body. We look at it as a lavush. Why are you allowed to wear it? As it stands, you're allowed to wear it because it's a shoe. It's a malbush. So the fact that Yesi asks means it's not a shoe. And yet on your kippur, you're not allowed to wear it. So why are you saying that it's only limited to a leather shoe, and then all these other people wore sham and all these other things? It should be everyone's made it that it's us. We don't need a shoe. Nothing to do with a shoe. Says the Gemara. Amar Abaye, we talked about Shabbat also about you can walk around your kippur. Amar Abaye said, "Hossam the eat baked tisi over there. They used to put. They didn't put the foot directly onto the stump. They would put some pieces of cloth on top of that wooden stump to make it more comfortable. And the problem is pleasure. That's the problem. So he said, why can't you wear this? The East is not al shul. The East is not pleasure. Amalei Rabba pounces straight away. If you're going to tell me that it's not a shoe, then the shmatz that you put on it does not turn it into a shoe. So why should it be us? And you're going to tell me what's the tainu? He says, when is tainu also on Yom Kippur? Well, you call tainu laman will be put in me also. Are you telling me they don't do anything with tainu in Yom Kippur? We only these in Nuyim are also, only a shoe. But Rabbi Labun have a korich sudakari. We learned before that he put a piece of cloth around his foot, like wearing socks, but not to give it go out. I gave him pleasure, but as long as it's not a shoe, it's mutter. Nobody argues on nobody's gonna say that a sock is also on Yom Kippur. No, so what's it do? So what? So the question goes back. Since Rabbi Yossi asks a wooden stump, is that I had on the shoe. And the fact that you put shmatzes there and have a little pleasure is not the Easter. It says in the very safe of the Braisa, but if there was some shmatzes there, it becomes tummy. It's a keli makabel tumah. It's no longer just a flat piece of wood. No, it's still not with a stump of mat directly onto the stump. There were no pieces of cloth on it. I'll tell you what pshat is. Everyone holds that it is a shoe. Rabbi Yossi also holds as a shoe. If Rabbi Yossi holds as a shoe, why does it say you're not allowed to walk with a stump on Shabbos? And because of the shoe, you're not allowed to wear it. You're not allowed to wear that stump. This is machlekes. You might remove that stump. Rabbi Yossi is worried that you're going to take it sometimes, maybe embarrassed, whatever it is, and you're going to pick it up and you're going to walk with it. And you're going to have. And otherwise, you're not going to. Big machlek is about Moy and Rif and Rashi and Shabbos. And all these Hadal of Shabbos. According to Rashi and Shabbos, comes out that a shoe could be either leather or wood. Because it says it right here. You say this wooden stump, and we call it a shoe. So Rashi's we look more like Rashi. So wooden shoe or a leather shoe is considered a shoe. Other Rishonim hold that it's only leather that's considered a shoe. This is not considered a shoe. It's just a lavush, and it's not a shoe. Others hold that anything that looks like a shoe is forbidden on Yom Kippur, and so on. Big machlek is in bracha shasli kotzarki or not. There are those who say that you do make a bracha shasli kotzarki even though you're not allowed to wear shoes. And the Gemara says that when Gemara bracha says when you're putting on shoes, the Sunday, that's make a bracha. They argue just like you don't make a bracha, you have to listen to the rooster when you make a bracha. It's just part of davening, so you can say that bracha. Plus number two is we learned before that if you're walking through mud, if you're going through certain places, you're allowed to wear shoes. So because there's a heter to wear shoes, you make a bracha in all instances. Others say because the right people do not wear shoes. On Yom Kippur, therefore, we don't make bracha just like that. So we're saying.
What shoes are very comfortable shoes?
Well, they still sell them. Huggies, no.
Just recent Crocs. Crocs that came over with these Crocs years ago.
Why too comfortable?
Yeah.
But it's plastic.
Yeah.
You want to be machmer like I tell you. Sorry? It's rubber. It's rubber. Oh, so rubber is gummy. That's mama sham. But it's true that rubber is synthetic. It's not like all rubber used to come from Japan. Then World War II, in America, they created synthetic rubber because Japan was on the other side attacking us. As you know, that necessity is the mother of all innovation. Okay, anyway, big machadi sham halam shadi. Tinoika's children, mutarim bekulan, children on Yom Kippur, you don't have to be machmer, you can do all these things with them. Chutz min ilasandel, the only thing they're allowed to eat, they're allowed to drink, they're allowed to wash them, and allowed to do all these things, but the only thing you shouldn't do is putting on shoes. Why punk shoes is the most strictest thing. What's wrong? The eating, which is also not you're telling me that you have no problem feeding a child. In fact, we'll learn a whole mission about what age, so on. And yet when it comes to shoes, which is the Rabbanon, you tell me if you mach with kids, why? Says the Gemara, very simple. The Amri Inchi of the lay, Hannah of the lay, we're going to say who did it, who tied a shoe, an adult. And we learned in Mariyavam is that it says that it's usher for an adult to give an Isa to a child. Therefore, when it comes to shoes, he can't tie it himself, so you had to tie it for him, so there were no an adult was involved. And we're very worried about people talking, as we always say, Nikim Hashem Yisrael. Of the lady chitze, I understand. And when it comes to bathing, what a little tanakas can bathe themselves. Obviously, people are saying an adult did it, or a sikh an adult did it. Aimer, I mean, isn't it the obvious answer that a sandal is obvious? You see the kid wearing a shoe. How do you know the kid had a bath today, or how do you know the kid was anointed at all? But anyway, Aimer me'etmal of the lake. Even though you know that it was a chitza, you can always say it happened before Yom Kippur. You don't automatically come to that conclusion. When it comes to shoes, you're going to say it happened now. Pretty much why sandal, sandal. Maybe yesterday, maybe what do you call it? Maybe it was done yesterday. Tied a shoe yesterday, and you slept with it. Says you want to know. You know why? Sandal the can't be yesterday. The Omar Shmuel said, "Hi man, the boy you limit them time with the misusa. You want to taste death? L'sayim misana, put on your shoes. The lign and go to sleep with your shoes." You're not allowed to sleep with your shoes. Why exactly is this a taste of death? I'm not exactly sure. We had in more Shabbos about Tamil Chamim used to put the shoes under the bed. Well, we know in Mar Bracha says that just sleeping itself is a taste of death, a 60th of death. So this must be stronger than that. What's the Indian? I don't know. But what is that? What's the Indian there? Why wearing a shoe is a taste of death? We're just looking up why, if anyone says it, why it's a taste of death. Okay. Doesn't say. Maybe Masha says, okay, saying well, you're telling me the only reason what people are going to suspect, but it says clearly you if you go to Rav and you ask Rav, can I bathe my child today? He'll say yes, and he knows that you did it today, yet not a problem. It's not because we're going to assume that you did it yesterday. Ella, the chilik is as follows. Hand of the labyrinth is how you think which a child does not need growing up. Goes abundant, we said with the creed. You know what? We're not going to do that on your kippur. Hand of the Messiah, bathing and anointing and eating, all that a kid needs as they grow up. Therefore, like goes abundant. I said, my foster mother who raised me told me, Revise the Yanuka, a young child needs to grow up. First of all, you got to bathe the child with warm water occasionally, or not occasionally, constantly. And also to anoint it. God will put it, the child grows a little bit. You have to feed it an egg with that heavy kutach. Interesting, a little baby, you give that heavy kutach, like yogurt, but heavy. It's that sour milk and moldy bread and all that. I guess those kids have very strong constitutions. God will put, now this is very interesting. This is the mother of Abaye saying, the kids grow up a little bit further, tibure mana, let them have they have to play around, let them break plates. So Gihad Rabba, Zovin Rabba used to Zovin Mana Gazizi, the guy who goes to the fair, buy old broken kalim, Lebanese for his kids, they used to go and throw at each other and break it, and that's how they had fun. Mazikin. And Abaye was one of the kids that grew up in his house. Now you said Abaye, boy, so belligerent. Fed. Oh, you're in the kutach. Yeah, like Bamba and just roll. Maybe. But it's heavy. It's very heavy. Okay. That would say it could stay a long time. You had them. So you need eggs. Eggs is interesting also for a little kid. Doesn't say anything about milk. I guess a nursing for the mother, so there's no milk. It's like the cream. It's sour milk. Sour milk is it's heavy stuff, and then moldy bread, and then some beer. But what's interesting is that they give toys to the kids, but this is their imagination. What's a toy? Give them dishes to throw around and break around.
Nothing different today.
What else is
That's right. Okay, interesting. So I'm saying Abaye grew up in a house where they used to throw dishes around. And that's you understand why Abaye was so aggressive in his life. Okay. Well, you follow the Rabbi's footsteps. Says there's one opinion on Mishnah that says that even though you're not allowed to go ahead and you wash and everything else, but a melech and a kala are permitted to go ahead and wash themselves. Right, and we said also a chaya that will give birth. You're allowed to wear shoes. That's the word of lezer chacham as. Says the Gemara says. Melech Mastis and man who's author of Mishnah Reb Chananya ben Tanya Tanya Melech Kalichos B'neim. The Tanakhama says that a Melech Kal should not wash the face. There's no excuses. And Reb Chananya Melech Kalichos B'neim. Posh the pshat is that the Tanakhama holds us Mahatayt, and therefore there's no exceptions. And Reb Chananya holds us the Rabbanon, and therefore Chachamim only asked where there is Tainug. And why is Melech Kal not because of Tainug? Then it says a chayil, like a sandal. Tanakama said a chayil should not wear. There's no excuse to wear shoes. If the floor is cold, she can wear shoes. So let's go through it. My time if the reason is tainug, why should a king be able to bathe themselves? It's a duty on the king that should always look well kept and kempt and everything else. So therefore, he has no breda but to go ahead and bathe themselves. I watch a king taking a haircut and so on. Kala, my time, that's pleasure. She's doing it for her husband. How long does the woman call the kala? Like at the time we learned a mining tachshitim in a kala. Somebody going about to have a chasna, and then the parents die. They go ahead, they continue, and they have tashmish for having been in subas of tashmish the first night, and then they separate from each other. And it says the ain mining tachshitim in a kala, even though she's an avela, you do not prevent her from putting on nice tachshitim kol shloishim for 30 days. So clear to me, how long is a kala? The first 30 days. So Chaya Tinos that was why because the ground is cloth, it's cold. Amashmul in Machmas Sakonas Akramutter. If because it's a sakana, then everybody is allowed to wear shoes. And this is what the Rishonim use why you should make the bracha shasei called tzarki, because a clear allowance here to wear shoes in case of necessity. So you should make sure the fact that I can wear shoes if I need to. And others trying to say the fact that most people don't wear shoes means you don't say the bracha shasei called tzarki, which is what we don't. Okay, this concludes Gemara's today, and we will continue tomorrow morning as Hashem.